I think, Flip can allude to it. There's much more emphasis in the Northern Hemisphere on scrumming, having a very stable platform in your set piece. That's been the scrums and the lineouts and the kickoffs. And because they're more attuned to that, and Super Rugby's always been about more flair, getting the ball out, having a more expansive game, I think that's exactly why they're just more attuned to what they're doing with their front guys.
Right, well, even John Smith was making observations about the scrum, and we've got a second rower here as well. So, Flip, as we continue to talk about scrums, I'd love you to jump in on the importance of the rest of the pack other than the front row. We tend to focus particularly on the props, on the bind, and yes, we saw a couple go down, and I suppose, Robbie K, since we've got the space, you might as well show us what is supposed to happen as the tight head binds to the loose head prop, and we have spoken about it before, but just very quickly, as somebody who's played on either side of the front row, what is the core difference between a tight head and a loose head?
The core difference, I want to use Bob's for
How did I make it?
All I want to say is relax. Look at his shoes. Look at his shoes.
I'll be taking the shoes off short. Flip's my lock, by the way. Yeah. You can have an ask. No, just from the tight head side of things, what the refs are looking for is the bind on the back.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. What we saw from the weekend is the French tight head was binding long and then slipping underneath the armpit, and that's what John was alluding to. And once you've got a player there, there's only one place his elbow can go, and that's down. And with that downward motion, obviously the scrum goes down. So what they're wanting is elbows up.
Sorry, just a question quickly. While we're on that, when you see that as the referee, why don't you just correct it? Let's put it that way.
Well, it's very difficult.
It's a slide nowadays.
There's a lot of there's about a ton coming from each direction. So if you're in that position, for you to move that, literally the scrum will collapse anyway. So, and it's very difficult for a tight head, particularly with all that force coming in, for him to bind here, and once you engage, for him to stay in that position is very difficult.
Yeah.
So automatically he's going to get into that position,
which negates
to try
this
get into a stronger position. So from that point of view, yes, John's right, but referees tend to let it slip with regards to the bind if they find the scrum is stable. From the loose head side of things,
This is when I dominate.
you do the front side. For the loose head side, generally speaking, you want a long bind. The longer your bind, the more grip you can get, particularly if you can get the pants as well.
Yeah.
And then what you're doing is that you're trying to be pulling out, getting your elbow up so that you're dislodging the lock from the power source, which is from behind, which most people don't realize, which a lot of loose heads don't get right. The Beast is very good at it, which is why he got a few penalties. So if he's going long, he's getting him there, he's pulling him out, and he's scrumming straight through. That's how you're going to be dislodging their scrum. If you've got a very good tight head, which France do have, and particularly Herrera from Argentina, he'll take you on very straight, and then you're going to have to get a much shorter bind up here, so he can't be getting any traction on you there. So plus you're keeping the scrum up at the same time.
I understand now.
So, if you could please return, assume the position, because I want to ask you about when the bind slips, particularly on the loose head side.
Yeah, it really depends on who you're playing against. So if you're playing against the French outfit, I would tend to go for a shorter bind because he tries to come very short on you here. So the shorter bind will negate the fact that he's coming in on the armpit. So if you, Bob's come back around here, son.
Don't worry, I'll be here all day.
The French tight head is trying to get you there and do that sort of motion.
Well, he's trying to stay up, hey?
Yeah, so from a loose head point of view, if Bobs is getting right over the back of me here, he's keeping me up there.
Yeah.
So you can't really get that traction.
Yes, I've got you there.
Okay, just quickly, just turn around again. Now, if you actually turn him that he's going outside, Flip, what do you do to make sure that he's
Remain stable.
Right, to stabilize it.
Yeah, the going out will obviously be the flanker trying to get his bum
get
back
him in?
Okay. As a lock, you would actually try and keep your weight on the hooker to keep as straight as possible. Keep your shoulders on his bum. Oh, you're not trying to shift, and the harder you will work on the back of him, the more difficult it would be for. So if I keep him solid here, it won't be easy for him to pull out. Yeah, it won't be easy for him to move them.
And I've got
and it looks very easy when Robbie just moves them. You must think Beast is against Robert Slimani, which is 130-odd Ks. It's not just pulling him out.
And generally speaking, when you talk about this, the bind slipping, so these guys are binding on these very thin jerseys, like my mate over here. So if you don't get a firm grind and on the engagement, which is quite an aggressive gauge there, very often you're in that position there, your hand just will slip because there's just too much force on the actual grip.
Okay, but how are we going to solve this problem? Because it is a problem.
Do we need those sewn-on patches they had
but
on
it's
Bobby's
a
I'm
shirt?
of the opinion, I mean, if our rugby jerseys are for front row forwards need to be different. They need to be able to grab onto them in some manner. So there's a firmer grip to allow for the stability on the bind for no other reason. I think what Flip says is very important. The difference perhaps in the scrum for the Springboks for this past weekend from last year, and my firm belief is the back five.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The amount of power that's been generated from the back five. We've got Sosin at lock with Urban Etzebeth. Muster does an incredible amount of work around the field, but Flip would know an incredible amount of work in the set pieces. So to have that sort of force coming from behind, is, if you just keep your back straight, all that force goes straight through the middle, makes a massive difference.
Let's talk about the back five. Let's talk about the samenwerking, because there obviously has to be, there is a count. Who usually leads that, by the way? Who usually...
It's a hooker.
The hooker is the
Hooker's the captain of the scrum.
They can only count to 5, so it's...
How much time do you have to spend together making sure that you do function as a unit, that you do time your shove?
That's the difficult thing in international setup, because you don't have a lot of time to get to working as a tight five, you know.
Yes.
Where in the old days, a tight five could go have a beer together and they would work as a team, you know.
Sure.
These days, you have to spend some time on a scrum machine, on packs against each other, you know. But it does look, as you said, Franco Mostert, he's got heaps of energy. I don't know what he's drinking before a match, but he's all over the field, and in the tight, you can see he's making a real difference. I think the weight of Urban Etzebeth behind the tight is helping them a lot as well. Because the French is not a small pack. They're not a small pack. They're big guys. And don't take away Opamorge and Siya Kolisi on the edges.
Yeah.
They're big boys. They're big boys and stabilizing. And even when young Depree came on, he made a big difference in the set phase.
Flip, is there a difference when you've got two different locks, like you've got this tall lock and you've got a shorter lock? Is it because you normally see that at school level?
Yeah.
And is that a problem?
I don't think it makes big of a problem. It does look funnier. I remember the days me playing next to Andries Packer. It looks a bit funnier on the television.
But scrum-wise?
Scrum-wise, it might be difficult for the eighth man to control because the hips are not in line. But your most important is your front row and the next four, the next line, the two locks and the two flankers to be square, to lift at the same time. You'll see when they go into the engage to get almost. You're not allowed to use the term to get that lean, to get that weight forward.
Yeah, you call it deload in South Africa.
Yeah.
So, you get a massive deload. It literally, it's pretty easy on you. I won't use nasty. But if you're getting a very big deload, you'll notice that bulbs will go backwards on the deload. So you've got literally, and that's all you need. You need that, 6-inch benefit that you're going to have your momentum going forward on the engage. 1-0.
Don't try that.
We see a lot of scrums slip. Guys literally just lose their footing. They look incredibly low these days, Bobs. I mean, I know you played in the front row years ago, but it looks as though
It's a secret, huh?
Okay, well, it's out there now. Everyone knows. But it looks to me almost every year as though the scrum is just sinking lower and
Once
lower.
you've engaged, everyone's trying to generate all that force into a load position. So you got yourself in the most compact but explosive position to get your power going through the scrum. So the way you do that is pretty much like Olympic lift. You're going to be making yourself as compact as possible. Hence, the level of the scrum just drops that centimetre or two first.
And where do you tall guys put your weight when the scrum is that low?
Yeah, you have to get low as well.
They're almost on a lazy boy these days.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just push.
if you think about it, if you're in the lower position, where is your gravity in times? Because guys are trying to stay up straight and square.
Yeah.
So if you're high up, where are you going to go? You're going to go straight to the ground. So
Yeah.
that's why I guess they're getting low.
Rob, just show us position of the feet sometimes, because sometimes it looks like the guys actually, the feet's going to...
They extend.
Yeah,
Do extend.
what very important, a lot of players do overextend. I think the referees have to get that right. And there are two things for doing it. If you think of our mate Shimmy, who's
Excuse me, what's the right position for you to start
the
off?
prop on the crouch is meant to be able to maintain his own body weight.
Okay.
All right, and then from the bind, obviously that sequence changes because you're getting the deload and the pressure coming from the back.
That's why you guys use the kettlebells for...
Well, some guys, yeah.
You only went there once.
Both is quite an athletic gent, so he can overextend rather easy. But some props, what they do is that they overextend on the bind, so when they engage, they can get the momentum and the 2 feet going forward.
So they chase the
Which is semi-illegal because it's got to be very steady scrum once everyone's engaged.
Yeah.
There should be no movement whatsoever. So it's kind of cheating the laws, so to speak. And other props prefer to be...
managing them is a better word.
Other props prefer to be a little bit more compact before they go go into the engagement area, so they change their feet around and then just bring the one back from the deload, so it gets
That is also a big part where the locks come in, is helping the prop have his ability to chase his feet forward and to get his, and the lock as well, to chase his feet forward on that impact if you win it.
Second shove. Again, I'm assuming that's where the hooker comes in.
You go for it.
Part of game plan?
Yeah.
Is it something predetermined?
No, it's very simple. I mean, once you're in that scrum, generally your front row is chatting to each other. You used to chat to the opposition in the good old days, but you're chatting to each other, and you can feel if there's a brink or sort of a break coming in their wall. Generally, it'll come from the tighthead side. So the tighthead say, "No, we're good to go." And as an eighth man in locks, you can feel it as well. You can feel if there's a little bit of pressure coming here, and then you know it's coming. When the scrum is incredibly stable, and you see that ball that's just lying at the sort of between the locks, incredibly difficult for anyone to move in that area. Because anyone lifts a foot, you're going backwards at a rate of knots.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, can I please just ask, because people stop me and ask me about this, and I don't know. What is it with the scrum put in not being straight?
Well, it probably goes down to IQ, but no, listen.
I never quite know what to say.
It's actually quite interesting. If you give them the ball, you say this is the base of the scrum. The Argentines prefer a channel 3 ball, which is the ball on the right-hand side of the eighth man, and they literally put the ball in over there, so it goes straight to there. Whereas our South African scrum halves and New Zealand guys, I mean, they tend to be using this hand, but they do that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, but that's something only the referees need to monitor. So, I think if there's a valid strike, I think they're fairly happy with the put-in if it's not 100% straight. But I think if there's not a valid strike and they tend to be slanting it towards the eighth man, they kind of get away with it. But the most important thing about that, referees are also, they mark negatively on reset scrums. So they're not going to reset or give a penalty or a short arm for something that's quite meaningless.
There's no guessing.
Bigger picture.